I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I've been gone for a couple of weeks. I was fortunate enough to take the first trip back to New York after 10 days. I mean, 10 days, for 10 days after a year and a half of not being there. So it was incredible. I'm hearing somebody's background noise and I'm not sure whose that is, but I guess. It was incredible to be out and about, to be reconnecting and seeing people, to be able to take business meetings face to face rather than on a Zoom screen. And I really missed my virtual chat event. So I'm really happy to be back here and to be with you, to see all of your smiling faces and names up on the screens. Thank you for joining us. Nicole and I had the pleasure of having a chat several weeks ago and getting to know each other. And I'm so excited for her to be on the show today to talk about really demystifying the money excuses in our lives. And I think it's probably a parallel for a lot of other things in our life as well. So I chose an excerpt from my book to read today that I thought was kind of a fun introduction for what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to start with chapter 13. What or who is holding you back? Do you find yourself living vicariously through others, marveling over their Instagram pages, feeling envious, reading stories of amazing adventures that others dared to take on, or hearing about complete 360-degree life changes? Then it's time to do something about it. Complacency versus creativity. Some of us stumble upon things in our lives and transition from one thing to the next: jobs, relationships, and health issues. Others create those changes consciously, deliberately, and with intent. There's fear, there's trepidation, there's a sense of adventure. Which category do you fall into? Do you wish and wait and watch others pass you by, or do you take charge of your life and create what you want? Do you wish you could take a bold step and create something new, break out of your comfort zone and be one of them? What's holding you back? Is it someone? Are you surrounded with people who tell you it would be ridiculous to try to lose that much weight, or switch careers, or pursue a talent, or save money for that trip you've always dreamed of? Is anyone in your life saying you could never do that? At some point, we have to realize we can pursue the things we want and overcome those naysayers and show them. I think many of us, I'm going to skip to another piece of this chapter. Reinventing has been in my bones every day of my life, shifting and moving with the highs and the lows of business, figuring out how to prioritize my children and family life, and creating downtime with a tenacious work and travel schedule. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I started at 24 years old and never looked back. As a young woman facing a man's world and the heaping challenges that could have thrown me into the arms of corporate America, security, and a steady paycheck, how many times do you think I was told, it can't be done, you will never get that business, why don't you just get something steady? Now, what fun would that have been? Not only have I created what I love to do and worked with companies and clients I thoroughly enjoy, but I've been my own boss since I started working. The creativity and business acumen to control my own destiny have been the greatest gifts I could have given myself. I've landed on the right balance and feel energized by both, cultivating my creative side with hobbies and interests that fulfill me. It's in my DNA to lean in. It's all I know. And that's just what I keep doing. If you can't put yourself and your inner voice first, you'll never be able to forge the path to get where you're trying to go. With that inner strength, certainty, and courage, it will be a lot easier to face those who say, you can't possibly be considering that career move or hobby or new relationship. Those naysayers will become nothing more than noise. Perhaps they'll even cease to play a role in your life. You have to have conviction in what you want to create for yourself. And it really doesn't matter what anyone else's opinion is, unless it directly hurts them. Don't let your own past limitations, hurdles, or failures limit what you are able to experience right here, right now. Don't let those things impact your judgment or more importantly, your expectations. Instead, think of how you want your life to be and take the steps to put that life into place. And I'm trying to think of a better way to segue into an introduction to Nicole, because she's here to help us figure out what some of those limitations are, the excuses that we're coming up with, and how to forge ahead. So thank you, Nicole, for being here. I'm thrilled to have you. Really appreciate your time. And I'm just going to give a smidge of an introduction to what you do. And before I do that, I need to do something on my computer, because I realize why I'm getting that feedback. And here we are. Okay, wonderful. So Nicole is a personal finance expert and business coach for women. She's the founder and CEO of Wilcox Financial Group and Powerhouse Money Coaching. Powerhouse Money focuses on business coaching for ambitious women in service-based businesses, wealth coaching, and educational programming. Wilcox Financial Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm. She's also the co-author of the best-selling book, Money Bitch, a no BS guide for smart women to own their financial future. So with that, Nicole, let's do this. Let's have a good chat about what it is that the world out there needs to hear about, how to really improve their relationship with money. And I think this is something, you know, at the core for so many men and women alike who are constantly challenged with this notion of what they're deserving of, what they're worthy of, how to ask for it, how to have a voice, how to have a level of confidence. I think most of my life, as I said in that chapter, and I really wanted to kind of, you know, read that because I felt it really connected for me on, as a woman running a business for 30 years, it was so important for me to have that voice, to have that confidence, to ask for what I deserved. You know, I was 25, 26, 27 years old, running around in my little suits thinking I was, you know, big deal in business, and I had to have that confidence to ask for what I was worth. And to me at the time, it wasn't even a question of is it the man in the room or the man or the woman in the room. It was probably my age at that point that made me think, what right do I have? So I've got a lot of questions, but I think a really fun place to start would be the question about who was little Nicole. And when you were growing up, did you know that this was a space in your world that you were going to be in? What was the vision you had for yourself when you were young? And what were some of the aha moments that came up in your life that enabled you to really find your way to where you are today?
Sure. So, and I love your story. I think it's so awesome. And we have, it sounds like a similar timeline actually with getting started. And my young self definitely didn't dream about being a financial advisor. You know, I think for a long while, I wanted to be a marine biologist and then eventually a lawyer. I wanted to practice in family law. And, but, you know, growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money. My father left our home when I was in middle school, and it was just my mom and us girls, and money was always, front and center, in front and center in a way where it was very apparent to me that we didn't have what others had. You know, I grew up in a very middle to upper class suburban community, and my family didn't fit that bill. And, you know, and fortunately and gracefully, I had amazing friends growing up where I was always able to get their hand-me-downs and clothes. So I looked the part, and, you know, and I saw my mom struggle, and she was always stressed about money and where that was going to come from. And because my dad wasn't around, she didn't have consistent support. She was a stay-at-home mom. And my mom didn't have the self-confidence that she needed to ask for what she was worth in terms of getting employment that paid better. And it was always a struggle and she was young. She was a young mom. And so I saw the financial struggle and her stressing over making sure that my sister and I were okay. And then finding herself in relationships that she wasn't fulfilled in, she wasn't happy in, but she was in them so we would be okay.
Right.
And I made a promise to myself very young that never will I ever be in a position where I can't control or own my future and circumstance. And I started working at a young age, as young as I could, actually. I think I started babysitting at 12 and hostessing probably illegally at 13, legally at 14. And from there on, and always was so serious about saving my money. I think I opened a Roth IRA when I was in high school. And I just wanted to make sure that I had enough, I could support myself, and did that. And so that really opened up the I guess the wanting of financial security. And one of my many jobs when I was going through college was working for a financial advisor. And in that experience, I realized how much the industry could actually offer, and what you could do. And at that same point, I was also realizing how bored I was in my internships, and falling asleep in the courtroom, and realizing how much reading was involved with law school. And as a ADHD very active person, I was like, maybe that's not a good move. And so
Right.
I realized that I should take a pivot, and that's what I did. I was 21 when I was working for this advisor, and he was really a very paternalistic guide in terms of having real conversations with me too, and even saying to me, Nicole, like, if you go this path of being a lawyer and getting into some social work, how are you going to support yourself? Like, how are you going to pay those college bills on the salary that you're starting with, and your loans and everything else that you've going on? Because at the time I was working full time and going to college. I was in a position where I didn't have a whole lot of wiggle room, and he asked me, do you really want to do that? And I said, well, no, but it's kind of what I was told to do. And at that age, and in that time frame, going to high school and then college, you just did the things, like, you went through the motions. There wasn't a ton of guidance or education. It was just like the cool thing to do. And so I thought, you got to be a lawyer. You got to be a lawyer, a doctor, or like, a business owner, a nurse, or whatever.
One of the fundamental issues in life.
Totally. Yeah. And I think when I did the aptitudes test in high school, I was like firefighters. Yeah. But in any event, that's really how it came about. And when he made the suggestion of being a financial advisor, I put zero thought into the matter, other than the fact that sounds good, and I'll do that. And so I did, and I got licensed very quickly. And at the same time, I had decided to get my MBA with a concentration in finance, because again, having a master's was the thing to do. And my young self wasn't very bright. And so I did that, went through the motions, and got started right away, and never looked back. It sucked me in, and I fell in love with every angle of what you could do.
Amazing. And such, passion in your story. I love how you just shared those steps. And, I think so many people go through what you just described of the standard obligations, this is what people do. I talk about this a lot in my book, and that's where people kind of wake up 5, 10, 20, 30 years later and have those aha moments and realize that there is so much more to life, and that they're not maybe following their real path that they wanted to follow. And the challenge becomes, do I feel entitled to take on something new? What would that be? How do I find my passion? And clearly the issue that everybody so often has is financially. I can't afford to leave that job. I can't afford to drop everything I'm doing and go pursue that dream. I can't afford to start that chocolate shop on Main Street. Money becomes the center. And I always ask this question: if money was no object, what would you be doing with your life? It's a great measure of who you are and where you want to be when you really ask yourself that question. And very few of us allow ourselves the luxury. We're almost afraid to ask it because we know there is going to be an answer to it that we think that we cannot then pursue.
Right.
And that is sad. That is tragic. It's the reason I wrote this book. And the notion of people feeling entitled to have their life that they want and to create it. And oh my God, if you can afford Starbucks every day and stop at that coffee shop and buy yourself a $6 cup of coffee, then maybe you really need to be thinking what you're doing and how to prioritize your life when you can make a cup of coffee for 30 cents at home and put that money in a tin and save it for 5 years or even 10 years every single day in order to start a nest egg for something that you want to, and that's obviously an analogy, but it's the way we have to learn how to reframe our brain and our mindset. And you talk a lot about, how money is an excuse. You speak to the notion of how we can turn things around. So share with us maybe some of the fundamental issues that you hear a lot when people come to you and they come to you for advice and guidance, and they come with, the dream in one hand and the empty checkbook in the other. And they're like, how do I get from here to there? What is that moment about for you, and how do you start to guide somebody in that area?
Yeah, I think truly it's actually starting with that why, and everybody that we work with, whether they are someone who is going through reinvention or a business owner, or not, it's like, what do you want? What do you want? What are you working for? And it's amazing how many people don't pause to think about it, to think about what their goals are. I think we have them in flight or in passing sometime. And so that's always the first step in them, especially for those on that reinvention process and saying, I can't work at this job any longer. It's sucking the soul out of me. I finally realized that there's more to life, but they're quick to say I can't, because I can't sounds easy. And so it's much easier, right, to just say you want to do something, but to stay where you are, where it's comfortable. And I explain to my clients, like, comfortable is kind of a little bit like purgatory, right? You're in between two different places. It's like the equivalent of saying I'm fine. It's horrible. Anytime you say I'm fine, you're probably lying about something. And so it's asking those questions, but then calling yourself out on the excuses. So why do you say you can't or you won't? Dive a little deeper on that and kind of discover the what is the resistance that you're feeling? Is it because you're going to have to make a change and that change is uncomfortable? Is that change getting scrappy financially? Is that change getting rid of the stability of the paycheck, and what does it take to replace that, or what are you missing? And so oftentimes, if we can break down the barriers of what the fear is, and often it's going to be married to money in some capacity, and to be able to break that down and then show in a very clear process or plan rather of, hey, you know what, this is what you're capable of achieving if you do X, Y, and Z. And this is what it's going to look like. You're going to be okay to quit your job. You're going to be okay to do this business, but you have to want it bad enough to make these changes or make these shifts. And I think a lot of times for many of us, it's getting permission. It's getting permission from somebody else that's not in your head, that's not your spouse or a friend who's always just going to go along with what you say anyways a lot of the time, to say to you confidently, you can do this and here's the plan, right? To give you those steps, because sometimes we know we want it, we know we're capable, but we are so overwhelmed with all of these ideas, with all of these what if scenarios that go in that reel inside our head, that we don't know how to take that first step or what that first step should be. And when it comes to having the gumption to say goodbye to what you're used to in that 9 to 5 and leaving, it's so helpful to know what you need to have saved, what you need to have set aside, what you need to think of in regard to your benefits. And then, of course, realizing what you're capable of earning on your own, and then the lifestyle that that can create for yourself as well. Or maybe you don't need as much as you thought, and your happiness is much more important to you. Your quality of life is much more important to you. So, it's that awakening, right? Of you have this one and only precious life to live. How are you going to choose to show up? And are you willing to pivot? Are you willing to take those changes and understand what that is going to take, and then follow the process to take the steps, because it's work, and for any kind of work, for any kind of change, and getting uncomfortable, it is going to hit resistance. And so it's just getting over that hurdle and asking for help, so that would be the first part of it.
Well, and I love it. And I want to just kind of like dig in a little to what you were saying, because I so often talk about the baby steps, which is what you're referring to, and breaking it down. So you have to be able to sort of take that roadmap, if you will, that game plan, whatever it is, with that lofty goal, and to your point, break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces. And then they don't seem as daunting. When you take a little baby step and you pat yourself on the back every time you've just sort of gotten over that one tiny little hurdle, that's a big deal. So even what you're saying sounds great in theory. Yeah, it's great. I should do that. And I need to get out of my comfort zone. Easy for you to say, I don't feel comfortable with that. And that's kind of those who are the ones that are hesitating or feeling blocked or feeling challenged are the ones who have a harder time getting out of their comfort zone. And that fear of failure, which comes so much with this conversation, the what ifs, what if I don't succeed? What if it's not, going to work out for me? Well, what if? Like, really? So you learn from it, you grow from it, you reset your course. It's an opportunity to learn something about yourself and what you thought you wanted, and find another way to get there, or find 10 other things that suddenly come up and go, well, wait a minute, I thought I wanted this, but I'm actually going to pivot a little, and I'm going to kind of go this way. But I do believe it's those baby steps and creating that comfort level of each piece and just kind of breaking it down. Today it may be research. Tomorrow it might be picking up the phone and calling a mentor. The next day it might be putting a plan together. And if you don't know how to write a full-blown business plan, it can be your version of a plan. What does it look like? When do you want to accomplish it by? Do you have goals to make money with whatever this is? How do you think that, you start on your own and you start to give thought, and thought is what creates beliefs and action and leads to what it is that you want to create, right? So I really love, how you just kind of laid that out, and the importance of, those small steps that will help us get over and get over that fear and get out of that comfort zone. Do you think we have a choice in how we make that happen? It's a bit of a mindset. I think, it's challenging for one who is locked into that place. A lot of people have been in a really funky mindset for the last year and a half because of everything that's been going on. And a lot of our friends and colleagues and folks that we don't know have been, really challenged from a mental health perspective. There's a lot of dreaming out there and a lot of challenges out there. So when we do have those setbacks and we don't accomplish what it is that we're hoping to accomplish, how do we pick ourselves up and sort of figure out how to get beyond that?
I think it's the ability to give yourself grace and embrace those setbacks. To your point of the baby steps, we are huge on the phrase positive progress, and realizing that you're not going to achieve everything that you want all at once. And sometimes when you have a setback, it's the universe telling you you just need to take a different path, and asking yourself the question, how can I get there, right? Not saying I feel defeated or this isn't meant for me or I'm not going to do it, but it's just positioning the question differently. How can I make this happen? And what did I learn from this setback? You know, oftentimes setbacks or those mini failures are our most beautiful lessons that feel like crap in the meantime. Like, let's, you know, be real about it. But it's the ability to remind yourself of what your purpose is and who it is you're becoming, and to keep going. And again, with that positive progress and taking those steps, reminding yourself that there are people to support and help you along the way, and seek that out. Seek out the people who have done something or walk the shoes that you're trying to walk, so that they can give you that encouragement, that support, that mentorship, and or professionals. And I would say too, Kathy, you know, and I'm sure you preach this all the time, is be careful who you listen to. Do not listen to the people who are giving you unsolicited advice. Right? How many people here have gotten unsolicited advice from people who love them, that it's well-intentioned, but their advice sucks. They're giving you advice that they haven't done what you're trying to do. They've never experienced it. And oftentimes a 9-to-5er is coming out of a place of scarcity mindset. They're coming from a place of fear, because to them, entrepreneurship or starting your own business or leaving something stable and consistent sounds ludicrous. You know, it sounds completely terrifying. And so you have to be very mindful of that, and create this almost like shield, right, around yourself of who you're going to choose to listen to, because you have that ability. You have the ability to choose not only how you show up, but you have the ability to choose who you listen to and where you seek that help to get to where you're going. You know, everything is figure outable, whether it's the money, the mindset, the ability to build it. It's just you choosing that path.
I love that you just brought that up, though. I think that is gold right there. I think we do tend to, and everybody's kind of nodding their head in agreement. I think we do tend to trust in those around us. But to your point, they are not walking in our shoes. They are not feeling the burning passion that we do for what it is that we want to create or do at that point in our lives. And it's hard enough turning off the negative voice in our own head that may hold us back. So finding the right people, and that doesn't mean they have to be yes people, but they have to be knowing. I talk a lot about mentors and mentorship, and I spent a lifetime mentoring hundreds and hundreds of young people that have come through the doors of my agency, or who I come across in life, or my friends' kids who kind of send their kids to me because of what I've done as an entrepreneur. And I think it is important that you find people in the lane of what it is that you're looking to do. So they can give you advice. They can help take the legwork out of some of what you're thinking or that road you're going to go down. And that might be a little, warning. You want to hear the good and the bad, but to your point, you want to hear it from people who at least have walked in your shoes or have the knowledge to support what it is that you're trying to build or grow or do. So I love that you brought that up. And what else does that support system need to look like when you want to create a reinvention? I talk about, you don't want to blow up your life and impact people negatively around you that you're either in service of, responsible for. That's a hard thing too. This might be a relationship issue, it might be a spiritual issue. Suddenly you decide to dig into it, and all of a sudden you leave all these people and all these responsibilities in the dust. How good are you going to feel about what you're doing if you don't do it in a responsible way, or you don't have the support system around you to sort of say, hey, I understand the journey that you're on. We're good with that. And not everybody's going to always have that either. So how do we move through that and make sure that we have the right support system?
Yeah, I mean, having a support system is huge, in the right support system. So again, looking at the people you hang out with most, the people you surround yourself, we've all heard of your top 5, right? Take inventory of that. actually, and if there's people who aren't supportive or aren't positive for you right now in this moment, it's okay to let them go, even if it's just temporary, and start to stack your deck and look at who you want to be surrounded by and who your support system actually is. And it's okay to make new friends. It's okay to seek out mentors. And I think we also discount the fact that there aren't people who want to help us, when in fact there are. There are so many people who are so very generous with their time and their ability. And if you have the knowing that they're out there, and just start asking the questions or showing up to networking events or wherever it is, like, you'll find your people. I promise you. It took me a while actually to find my people. I didn't have a support system for a long time, and it was so lonely. And that's actually why I started our mastermind group and run that, to provide the support system for women business owners that need it, because it's not always readily available. And sometimes you have to join things like that, and that's okay. I think looking inside and knowing what kind of person you are, what you need to hold yourself accountable, and what you need to grow is so incredible, to have that self-awareness, and then going and seeking it if you don't already have those systems in place. And there's a ton of networks and organizations as well to help provide those resources for you.
And I know that you have a special offer that you want to provide to everybody today. I don't know if now's a good time to share that, just because you sort of brought up your program. Maybe we'll get to that in a moment, because I don't want to get sidetracked from this great conversation. What's your favorite part of the work that you do? What is it? I mean, you've got so much to offer in terms of knowledge and expertise, but there's such a well-rounded approach to what you do, from an understanding of where money sits in the middle of that conversation. And that can be crippling for a lot of people. It can be empowering for a lot of people. But what is it? What is the part of the work that you really enjoy doing?
It's the transformation, it's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and to be able to work with someone who, whether it's from a financial planning perspective or a money coaching or business coaching, it's the ability to start with a blank canvas almost, regardless of how messy it is or not, and hear what it is that someone wants to accomplish, and be able to get them to that finish line is the most rewarding thing, whether it's building and scaling a more profitable business, or if it's looking at someone who's coming to us and they're saying, I just got divorced, I have zero assets, and I need to build up my credit so I can retire, and in working with them over a number of years so that they do have over $1 million in assets saved, and they have confidence to ask questions, and they're showing up in their life like they know they deserve, and they've built that. Like, it's that transformation in every scenario, and everyone is so different. And I think too, in the work that we do, like, it never gets old, because it's always new. It's always new. It's always challenging. It's always different. And for me, that's what keeps the spark, and being able to continuously create that, and always learn those new challenges, and the people we work with, for me at least, I mean, our clients become family and friends, and it's so much fun to be able to be in that position. And I think that's probably why your tribe, Kathy, is working on their reinvention story, to have that feeling where, I call it, it's like a song, you're going through this rhythm that just feels good and it feels right, versus having so much resistance of the feeling of, I don't want to wake up today. I don't want to go to, it's that difference, that shift. And it's the people I have the privilege of serving, right. And making that impact.
That's incredible. Do you come across a lot of people that are in relationships where, I'm sure this could be a challenge for a lot of people, where you have a dream, you want to invest into something, you want to build something, you want to pivot and start your own business, and there's a partner involved. And all of a sudden, it's not only your decision, it's really that of two of you. Do you sort of get almost like the couples therapy version of this
Yes.
conversation? You must have to deal with that, I would imagine, because,
Oh, yeah.
if any of us are in a relationship with someone, you're not doing it alone. And, you want their support, but you also realize that you may be pulling on the financial picture of
Mhm.
the family, the entity, the partnership between the two of you. So you're not just asking them to go, hey, great job, pat you on the back, but all of a sudden you're asking the other person to perhaps sacrifice,
Yep.
lean in a little more, step back a little bit. I mean,
Mhm.
how does that play into some of the work that you do?
Oh, it plays in a lot.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of
I feel like
couples,
nobody really
and
talks about this.
it's a very careful conversation. It's a careful conversation on social media because a lot of the time their partner's on social media, and it's difficult to do a post and say, I'm not getting any support from my spouse. He's driving me nuts. I'm terrified I'm not going to be able to do this. What do I do? Right?
Yeah,
Or I'm
exactly.
afraid to talk to my spouse, and because no one wants to be judged. Like, I don't want anybody to think I have a bad marriage. I don't want anybody to think I can't handle this or do, and so it's one of those conversations that is weighing on most everyone's mind, but it's not made public a lot of the time. But in every couple dynamic that we deal with, there's always some kind of issue, and most of them can be resolved and they're simple. But let's face it, you're marrying someone who has a different money story than you, a different money type than you, and to get on the same page and to play in a team is hard. Like, marriage is hard, okay, but then being on the same page about money is hard, and then go start a business, like, whew, you just leveled that up, and so you have to have those conversations, though, and getting on the same page. And it's actually something that we talk with our clients quite a bit, and how to ask those questions. I actually have a lot of women will call me and say, how do I even talk to my husband about this? How do I bring up the conversation? And it's a lot of question asking versus telling, and using that strategy and method is really powerful. And then for us, we are huge on teamwork, making the dream work, right? Having that concept, but then being really transparent. I'll say to people, when you're talking to your spouse about starting a business, they need to understand the financial impact. They need to understand everything clearly. And we help with that. And we help with showing the changes, the difference, what the shift is going to be it good or bad, because sometimes there's just so much mystery. Seeing hard numbers is very comforting. But the other reality of that is you got to get the buy-in, because if you don't get the buy-in, you are not going to win one of two of those wars, and they are your marriage or your business, right? You're going to choose to build your business and get a divorce, or you're going to quit the business and stay in your marriage because it's just not worth the argument. And building a business is hard enough, and so you have to have the buy-in of your spouse. And so being transparent about the help you're going to need. I'm talking mostly to women because I think we are famous for playing the martyr card of, I have to do it all. I have to build a business. Like, I have to take care of the kids and everybody else and mom. And like, we forget that like there's other people that we can delegate to, but we just don't. And so it's first being honest with yourself and realizing how many hours you have in a day and what you need to do with them to build a business, but then talking to your spouse and saying, this is going to be the time commitment I'm going to need you to help with X, Y, and Z. Because if you leave that out, and I promise you this will most likely happen, is that if you just say, I'm starting a business and you support me and you go through all the financials, we go through the plan and all of that. And he says, yes, I support you. It makes sense. The money looks good. And I'm willing to sacrifice X, Y, and Z, dollars for a little bit, because I understand the business numbers make sense. So yes, you have the buy-in from the financial side. You have the buy-in from him supporting or her supporting you from starting your business. But if you don't say, oh, by the way, I'm not going to have time to do this, and this, and he or she comes home and all of a sudden they now have to help with dinner, they now have to help with cleaning, they now have to help with the kids, that support fades quick if you don't set that upfront expectation. And that's the reality of it.
And you can't assume that they're going to make that assumption themselves. You might say, well, what did you think was going to happen? Well, no, they're not. And no partner necessarily should have to do that work too. So I love that advice. It's, you know, it's such an important topic. I feel like we could do like a whole show on couples
We
financial
could.
therapy because I'm sure there's a
We
whole kind
could.
of show in that right there, which is really amazing. And I love that we just touched on it. Some amazing nuggets in that alone. I'm getting very aware of what the time is, and I feel like there's so much other ground that we want to cover. I want to ask you sort of a fun question, and then I'm going to open this up for a little Q&A. But one of my funnest questions to ask people is the dinner party conversation. If you could have anybody sitting at your dinner table that was impactful or interesting or fascinating, and it could be a person from history, dead or alive, someone very current, someone close to you, 3 or 4 people that just would really, we'd love to have a great glass of wine and break bread with and enjoy sitting and having a conversation with.
It would be Sarah Blakely, Jesse Itzler, Barbara Cochran, David Goggins, actually, only because my husband would have so much fun with him.
Right.
And
Okay.
he needs to enjoy part of this party.
Of course.
But you know, those would probably be my top people. And I would love to be surrounded by the energy that they all have, in their story. I love all of them so much because I see parts of me in what they did, and they're entrepreneurs that are huge on making an impact and giving back, which is near and dear to my heart. But they started from nothing. They started from nothing, and that to me is so admirable, because I started from nothing with nothing, and I was told no, never gonna fail 100 times, and so were they. And albeit I didn't create what they did. I mean, that's goals, right? But that would be but
incredible, and they pay it forward. I happen
Yeah.
to know Sarah. Fortunately, I was able to book her and engage with her as a keynote speaker at a major women's conference many years ago when she was literally just hitting her cusp. I think she had just been announced as the wealthiest privately held company, female owner, and Jesse, I have a lot of friends who invest in a lot of the companies that Jesse's involved with. And so I watch those circles carefully, but if you follow Sarah on Instagram, talk about paying it forward. I mean, she is so humble. She is so grateful. She is such a role model for so many, and it's incredible. Her story is incredible, and such a story of persistence and conviction and willing to do it all and sit on the floor and roll up your sleeves and do it until, you just keep growing. And I just love that you brought her up. I haven't heard anyone bring up her name in this context. So that's really fun.
So what you're saying is you can set the dinner party up.
Absolutely. Let's do it. I know people who know people. So
Great.
I just love that. I love that. Super fun. I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. I'm going to sign off because of our podcast and just say, and please stay on, everybody. I'd love to open up for Q&A. But for those who are on the podcast, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Details on how to reach Nicholle Overkamp are in the show notes, and so you'll be able to connect with her on her website, which is powerhousemoney.com. And if you're listening to it in the next couple of weeks, she has an event coming up November 4th, and it is specifically for women-owned businesses. And she's got a special offer, so we'll include that. I just want to thank you, Nicole. I'm going to say goodbye to those who are listening to the podcast, and thank you again. And have a great day and happy reinventing. And we are no longer recording the podcast, but we are still going. So anything else before we go into Q&A that you would like to share, and perhaps even talk a bit about this upcoming event that you're doing and what it is that you'd like to offer? We've put some notes in the chat about it for those that are here, but maybe you can tell a little bit about this event.
Sure. So the workshop that we're doing, it's called Level Up, and I run a few of them before the end of the year because we are currently working on filling our mastermind that's launching in January. So that's that community I was talking about. But the Level Up event truly is for anyone who is looking to level up their business in some capacity. And what I love most about this workshop is it is relevant, and you're going to find something to take away regardless of what stage you're in your business, whether you are just getting started or you've been in business for a while and you're feeling like you're in a rut and you need to get unstuck. So I'm going to talk about our core powerhouse rules for success, which are really the like 7 biggest failures that I've had, and and how I've learned from them and turned them into like serious success staples that we'll talk about. And a lot of it is mindset and setting the boundaries and having the confidence, and but also understanding too, like what numbers to pay attention to, and how to organize and streamline a lot of your systems and strategies to understand how to become more profitable, keep more profit for yourself versus just focusing on revenue, which, I think unfortunately social media now only talks about revenue, which doesn't mean a whole lot for what you get to take home. So we talk about all of that. It's so much fun, very engaging. And for everybody in your community, the ticket for the event is 50% off. The code is in the show notes. You have that, easy to remember, Money Bitch 50. So I would love to see you guys on. Men are welcome if you guys so choose to show up. We've had plenty of men in our workshops before, and they make it fun. So yeah,
I love that. Well, thank you. And I'd love to include that in our next newsletter, if that's good with you, that we can share it out to a wider audience. So
sure, I'd love it.
about that offline, but I think it'd be amazing because I feel like the wisdom and the information that you can share and provide people is incredible. It's so valuable. It's so important. I love that we have the men on here that are on today because, and I know Marvin actually even made a little comment here in the notes, which I'm just going to reiterate, where he says, I would like to help to create a tiny men-owned business section. So maybe I'll open it up for a little Q&A. Marvin, you want to share a little bit more about what you're thinking there? And I'm not surprised that you would come up with an idea like that, but that could be a really interesting way to kind of evolve your expertise here, Nicole.
I might not want to call it tiny men though.
Well said.
I was just being, that was a way of being cute and clever.
But I love that.
No, I mean, obviously, if this is something specifically for women, I respect that. But I think anybody that Kathy brings in to our universe, if we have an opportunity to benefit from it and support it, she's always got my attention. So I was just saying, if you're willing to do, I definitely have other people that own businesses that are female, but I can also see other people that are men that are going to benefit. Because you said something really powerful. I mean, this is kind of a special day because I have my number one fan here, who's my mom, and like the biggest investment I could ever have. Say hi to Kathy.
Hi,
And then I have my mentor in Kathy, and then without Kathy, I never meet Maris. So the comment I have is, I mean, I've been very blessed to be surrounded by very powerful women that don't designate themselves as women. They designate themselves as powerful individuals.
Yep.
And the one thing I learned from my mom, from my grandmother, from my sister, from Kathy, from Maris, it's about saying yes and the power of yes. So to make this a question, how important is it for you, for your clients to have a mindset of what you can actually do and their vulnerability and their understanding that they have to break away from what they did before for you to be able to help them?
So it is, I think, going into anything that we do, having a mindset of open-mindedness and vulnerability is critical, because you have to show up and not only be receptive to new ideas or concepts, but vulnerability is huge because it's the core of where you can begin to grow. And so, and you know, and especially for men, I think it's sometimes harder for men to be vulnerable than for women. We're used to talking about our feelings.
What I say all the time,
Um,
men need this so much more because of
yes,
that.
and you know, it's interesting. I actually have a man in my mastermind group right now, and we will accept men as long as I put them through a little bit of an interview process because I want everybody to be comfortable. You know,
Right.
they can't fit your everybody know like that specific like very alpha male that may not fit, but you know, we of course men are welcome, but to that point, vulnerability is always the first hurdle, and then it is the willingness to be coachable and then implement. You know, the implementation phase is huge, and actually taking action, because a lot of us know what to do, but it's difficult to actually do what we know. There's a big difference there, you know, and I joke all the time with my clients, like, it's great that you know that, but what are you going to do with it? You know, and knowledge is only potential power, you know, and so it's all of those things. And then of course for us, we help hold our clients accountable and really ask a lot of questions, to help you get, you know, the answer a lot of the time, right? But it's pulling it out of you in a way that you're empowered to move forward and feel really confident about that choice. And because we get stuck in our own head a lot of the time, we can be our own worst enemy. And so when you say out loud what you're capable of achieving, when you say out loud what it is you want to do, and you have that moment of realization, it's so powerful.
You know, but yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm reading the comments here, and Sally's saying that she would love to know more about the mastermind group. But I just want to kind of go back to what you said. The notion that men need more of this dialogue, more of these conversations. We women tend to gather, we talk about these things, we wear our emotions on our sleeves, we engage each other, we draw it out of each other. So I think any opportunity in any room that we as women invite, especially as we just celebrated yesterday, the International Women's Day or Day of the Girl, that we truly invite the men into the room, into the conversations, into our communities, because that is how they will learn and grow. I have young sons, well, they're not so young, they're 22 and 25, but I have brought up two young men, and them seeing a role model in me and what I do and what I've done with my life, I know that has given them a perspective of respect for women and a knowing of what is possible and who they may want in their lives, and have appreciation for the space that they take up and the energy that it takes. And, going back to the conversation about, finances and partnerships, you want that balance in a relationship. So I think it behooves all of us, and especially with the Me Too movement that we've all been, witnessing so hardcore in the last 5-10 years. It's important that we're not alienating the men, but we're inviting them into the room, into the conversations, into the community, and saying, hear who we are, hear who we collectively can be.
Yeah.
And allowing space for that dialogue. So I think it's really important. So I love Barbara, you even suggested, and as Mara so beautifully said, big men, big money.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well said. I wrote that down, Mara, so I'm like, oh, that's clever, very clever.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And we have a lot to learn from each other, and I think it just makes for more powerful conversations, truly, and especially in being in a service-based business, how powerful is it to have a conversation with both men and women at the table, and have diversity in there, and say, hey, like, why am I not getting a yes from X organization or X person? And even walking through that conversation and dialogue that you've had, you might not be realizing how you're showing up because you've never had someone actually call you out. You've never had someone walk you through the conversation before, and you don't know what you don't know. We are often blind to our own blindness. And one of the most powerful things that you can do in business is hear different perspectives, because it makes you so much more powerful in how you're able to deliver your message, how you're able to connect with your people or the people who don't even know they need you so much. And so that's really powerful too, I think, is having those inclusive conversations.
Yeah, no, I love it. We are practically on the hour, so I want to thank everybody for being here today.
Wait.
Oh, Josh, sorry, I saw your hand went up before and then it went down, so I thought you were like done. Josh, go for it, quick.
Okay, my question for Nicole is that now that you've reached this level of personal understanding, and now that you're stepping in your power, is there any type of changes going forward as far as like new goals? When you started, you wanted to do this, the marine biologist, now you're doing this, and then so it's like now once you understand these talents and everything about yourself, is there any type of career change in the future for you?
There's definitely not a career change in the future for me. I've been doing this now since 2009. I've had my own firm since 2012. I'm obsessed with what I'm doing. Like, I definitely know I'm living my purpose in a very authentic way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think, there's never an end though for me as far as goals go. It's just a matter of how can I and we as a collaborative group continue to make a positive impact and grow the company in a way where it's meaningful. And I think my next stage will be more of a, how can I do more of giving back? And I'm working on that right now. And even with a lot of my clients, we just did some research, and 7 out of 10 that I work with end up earning more money because a lot of the strategies that we work with them on, in addition to the financial planning and the negotiating and the confidence building, and I hate, and Marvin rather, you touched on this earlier and said, it's not man, woman, it's they are awesome, right? You don't have to be, like, I hate the whole boss babe thing. Like, no, like, I'm a boss, and where I'm going with this is that my whole business is about empowering women and allowing them to achieve what they want and owning their future. And it wouldn't be authentic if I weren't helping solve the problem to the wage gap. And why are women earning less than men, in working on the education around that and truly making a difference. Because if you look at the studies, it's not because companies are always selectively just paying the men more than the women or having a bias on purpose. Often it's women aren't asking. They're not speaking up.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not advocating for themselves. And this goes for a lot of men too, who are maybe more of that beta male or doesn't have the self-confidence, or had a bad experience being told no in the past. And so it's having the conversations about, you are your own advocate. You are the only person who is going to be your own cheerleader, and working harder, taking on more work doesn't equate to a bigger paycheck paycheck if you don't ask for it. And so really understanding your worth is so important to me, and to teach that, and to have people ask for what they're worth and understand that and have confidence behind it. So hopefully creating or joining, I'm currently looking right now to see like who I can even, like, where can I chime in or join in, or some organization really working on that. Kathy, if you have a connection.
I do. I actually just wrote it down. I was waiting for you to finish. Right. Guys, it is 3:32. Maris, I just want to point out Maris's question. Josh, thank you for that. Maris asked if you are doing financial literacy with young women. We don't have time to get into it, but I know that connecting Maris and Nicole would be a powerful thing. So I'm going to make sure that you guys connect. I also want to just mention Shelley's Alice, that owns the Female Quotient, is a place where you need to contribute your expertise. I'm going to connect you with Shelley and the Female Quotient. Their events, their panels, their conversations, their podcasts, their content. So if you don't know the Female Quotient, look it up and send me a note. You and I are going to talk about that. You guys are amazing. I love this conversation. I have a feeling there'll be a part 2 somewhere in the future. We put the link in here. What I'll do is send an email out to everybody tonight that is on here with the powerhousemoney.com/mastermind link, and connect all of you so that you're all on an email and you can all have conversations with one another. It's what I love to do. And Nicole, thank you again for today, for your wisdom, your insights, your amazing work, and for all that will come from this for all of us. Thank you, and happy reinventing, and have a beautiful week, and I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Absolutely
Kathy.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Bye,
job.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
This one was special.